Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Bancroft Brothers animation podcast.
Hey, Tom. Yes, welcome back. And we just finished up Animation Y'all Expo very briefly. I just want to say it was a huge success. Thank you for everybody that came all the way out to Nashville to be part of our very first show, our very first Animation Expo. It's the only one in the South that's a professional expo. And it was a huge smash, Tom, right?
And it was. We are coming back. Here's the I'm sped up forward to the end. We're coming back. It's going to be bigger next year. We're just now planning that, trying to find the right venue because you got to go bigger. And so lots of questions. We will be, follow us on Instagram, on Animation Y'all Instagram. And right. Because that's going to be where we're going to be, contacting people and saying, hey, what do you want to see? Is there a guest you want to come? That stuff's going to start hitting Instagram sooner than later. So I did that fast because we need to get into this talk with our new friend. And I'm going to introduce him right now. Well, no, you are, because you know how to say his name. Go ahead. Supposedly.
Very famous, well-known voice actor Eric Bauza is with us tonight. Let's hear it for Eric. Thank you, buddy.
Boy. I don't know if I'm famous, but the people behind me are famous, and I'll tell you who. That's Daffy Duck and the Porky Pig. Hi, fellas.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can I just geek out for a second? The transition you did from one to the other, that's the part I've never seen a voice actor really do, where within one word.
Mel Blanc was good at that too, though, wasn't he? He was a master.
I study every Mel Blanc interview, especially when he was on David Letterman. And, he often described Bugs Bunny as, they described him as a tough little stinker from the Brooklyn or the Bronx. So I mixed the two of them together, and that's how I came up with Bugs Bunny Duck. Right down to the laugh. Mel Blanc for me was, as we all like to call him, the blueprint of not just the voices, but the personalities as we enter the 90th year of Looney Tunes. We talk about these characters like our oldest relatives.
That's awesome. And guys, this is for our listeners out there. We're super happy to have Eric with us, mostly because he did so many voices. We're going to get into how many voices for the very brand new Looney Tunes, The Day the Earth Blew Up. And it comes out in 2 days from where we sit, I believe.
It's a feature film.
By the time this releases, as you guys are listening to this, listen to our podcast, absolutely soak it up, get all the details, and then go see this movie because Catch Up Entertainment is releasing it. It'll be in theaters all around. And so check it out this Friday.
I want to hear all those stories, but we were starting to get into a very interesting thing, which is, did you know, Tony, that Eric wanted to be an animator, right?
Don't we all?
Essentially, my education with animation, of course, started in the what I like to call the 90s renaissance of Looney Tunes. In the 90s, we had, of course,
the Bugs Bunny and Tweety Bird show. I thought I saw a putty tat. I did see a putty tat.
I'm going to eat that bird if it's the last thing I do. I'm starving, guys. You don't have any bread, do you? Yeah, so it was Saturday mornings. And kids, I used to have this thing called a VHS player. And what I was able to do, I was able to record the entire show. And I would rewind it, pause, and I would stop on a certain pose. And I would draw from Chuck Jones, of course, Bob Clampett, Friz Freeling, Tex Avery, Bob McKimson. These are all the godfathers of the Warner Brothers golden age. So, and of course, of Mel Blanc.
Oh yeah. And so you fast forward, you put a portfolio together, I'm assuming, and tried to get into you're Canadian, correct?
Yeah.
So Well, I don't know what gave it away, But these Canadians come over the border and they take all the American iconic jobs. Quite frankly, we're going to put tariffs on Canadian words so they can't speak anymore. That's going to be, going to make them pay. I should probably stop using that voice until my green card gets approved. But
that might cause some problems.
Aren't you on U.S. soil right now as we do this?
I'm in America, right in America, the heart of America, New York City, actually. Yeah. That was it. Sheridan College was as I recall,
that was the
Disney.
place.
The Disney mothership used to come over and abduct all of our Canadian animators and then either ship them to Australia or they would bring them home to Burbank. So I kind of chickened out though. I was kind of like, this is hard. Like the requirements for Sheridan were very tough, and I ended up taking just your average radio, television, and broadcasting in college. And in my third year, I actually applied for an internship at a small studio that was desperately looking for free interns by the name of Spumco. That was the studio, of course, that gave us Ren and Stimpy. But this year,
John Chris Felucci started that with Ren and Stimpy.
Another wacky Canadian. But what was great about internships, though, is what you learn what to do, but especially what not to do. So and I learned a lot of things that I will never do. But what I learned was to treat people with respect. And when that happens, then they will invite you back to the party. Whatever caliber artist you are, it's always nice to be a good person to others, and then that will build trust, and then you get better as you work on the job. So I was working alongside people like Gabe Swar, Katie Rice, Matt Danner. You got Nick Cross. On the Canadian side, you got Nick Cross, Christy Gordon. Some of the most remarkable painters, color stylists, storyboard artists, layout artists. And then after I left that studio, well, after I shut down 3 Spumcos in a row, I was let's just put it simply, I was the one that was packing the boxes and putting them in the.
So you were you were on the production side, not the artistic side, right?
I was the guy that was making sure the artists got their stuff in on time. I was then basically this is how I learned animation at that studio. Was I became whatever the budget couldn't afford. So if the budget couldn't, and no joke, from being production manager to animatic editor. I went from being animatic editor to cleanup artist. I went from cleanup artist to character layout.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I was,
it sounds like you started with no paycheck as an intern and then started to earn a paycheck, I hope.
Yeah. And what's that? I don't even know how to spell that word.
I remember Spumco.
Eventually I ended up supplying the voice on a very not so great reboot of Ren and Stimpy, but also keeping in mind, this was the era of the end of 90s gross out cartoons and the beginning of Johnny Knoxville and Jackass. So would you rather see Ren and Stimpy fart in each other's faces, or would you rather see Steve-O and Johnny Knoxville do that? And we lost that contest. But Billy West was already onto bigger and better things, like Futurama, as also the Red M&M as we know him. So I ended up for a very brief amount of time being able to say,
hey, Ren, will you button me? Happy, happy, joy, joy.
So I was able to.
That's pretty solid right there, man.
And again, it's a dog chasing its tail, because if you think about it, those cartoons were heavily inspired by the Clampett era of Looney Tunes. So
they were.
In a way, it was kind of like, a lot of people that grew up with Ren and Stimpy look at this movie and go, oh, it's a little bit like Ren and Stimpy. But I'm like, well, Ren and Stimpy was a little bit, it was a little bit like the Clampett, really.
Yeah, right. I want to get
one came before the other.
Up in just a second here, but I also want to ask you, so what got you in? You seem to be really good at impersonating, hearing voices and being able to copy them or impersonate them. How did that start for you?
Well, I feel like the 3 of us on this call, we were probably the kids in school that couldn't quite pay attention to maybe the more mundane subjects, and when it came to art, then it was our time to shine. I was pretty much considered, at least in elementary school, I was, even when the teachers needed something drawn, I was the kid that, can you draw this for me?
Yeah.
And that, being the artist in the class, you kind of thrive on that attention. It's like fuel for the fire. Then high school came around, and then I was like, that teacher sounds funny, and I was impersonating teachers. Kids, probably something you shouldn't do. However,
for you.
However, they made a deal. They said, okay, you could how about this? Get your work done, and then tomorrow you can go to the main office and read the morning announcements over the PA system.
Oh, that's
No way.
fun.
So that was like,
Cool.
technically, I went from entertaining just not the class clown, but I became the school clown. Essentially that was my first audition, or even my first Netflix stand-up special, was those morning announcements. And
It wasn't just Bugs Bunny.
I was doing like, "Woo, Marge, there's hot dogs in the cafeteria."
Oh, Homer, those are high in cholesterol.
So I would do
you were
all
doing
sorts
voices, right?
I was
Yeah.
doing
the whole
voices.
time. Oh,
and
man.
much like you guys, I would walk back to class, and if I saw someone laughing, or if they said, "Hey, was that you?" and that was the more fuel for the fire.
Yeah, you must have gained a lot of followers, friends, maybe girlfriends. I don't know. Did the girls love it?
I know, every interview they're like, and then that's when you hit on the girls, right? And I'm like, no, I'm just a gentleman. I'll tell you, I never got into any fights at school. That's for sure. I was always the guy that kind of, no one really ever picked on me. And I guess maybe it was just, I was able to hop from like social group to social group because of my sense of humor. And,
yeah,
usually how we survive as creatives.
Yeah.
Gotta
As
be
creative
likable.
yeah.
I would just draw on girls' peachy folders and hope that they liked it enough that they would
Right.
remember me in the next class.
Well, there you
Didn't
go.
work for you either, did it, Tony?
Always the charmer, Tony.
Yeah.
So I got to get into the day the Earth blew up. Okay. So this is Looney Tunes at its max. I've seen it already. Tom, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but I also worked on it. I did some freelance animation on it, believe it or not. And so I have it wasn't a ton. I worked on it for a short time, and then I got pulled onto another project. But I probably have about 7 shots in the film.
Wow.
And but I
That's
remember
more than me,
seeing this.
Tony.
The story reels were crazy. It was crazy fun. Totally Looney Tunes. And I think this is the first Looney Tunes feature. Is that right, Eric?
I like to say that this is the first Looney Tunes movie without the help of AI or NBA basketball players.
Yeah.
Yes.
No LeBron Jameses were harmed in the making of this movie. Yeah.
And that's fine and dandy. I've worked on these with these characters in the capacity of 30-second shoe commercials to a complete reimagining, like the Looney Tunes cartoon show, or the Looney Tunes show, then Looney Tunes cartoons. And then I was in the Space Jam sequel, and then now this, which is, like you said, the first standalone Looney Tunes feature film that doesn't even feature the cast. And I know you guys know this, and I'm sure some of your listeners know this, that there were very famous pairings of these characters in the original run, and that is
Rabbit season, duck season, and then even with Elmor Fudd, be very, very quiet, and anyone else that was against Bugs.
Right.
And then we would have, of course, Coyote and Roadrunner, beep, beep, but then we would have the odd pairing of Porky and Daffy, which I always, every time I press play on a Porky Daffy short, I always have to say, poor Porky. Like, what is Daffy going to do? What is Daffy going to do to ruin his life today? And
he's like the Charlie Brown of Warner Brothers animation.
oh, yeah. And now we have 90 minutes to explore their origin, their possible origin, and then some, alien invasion.
Yeah, I mean, it is wacky. Yeah, so help me out too with the I believe at the time when I was doing it, there was 2 directors. Is that right?
I know Pete Browngardt, and then we had Alex Kerwan, who were the exact same team behind the Looney Tunes cartoons, which was 1,000 minutes of Looney Tunes. It wasn't like it wasn't a show. It wasn't like they had shorts that were like 30 seconds made for your phone. They had a variety of different shorts, but it was about 4 or 5 years that those 2 worked together. Plus, if you notice all the writers, it's a pretty major credit list.
Yeah.
And that's only because they're all the storyboard artists. All the storyboard artists were credited as writers on this. And they were the ones.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah. And these were the guys that worked and the women that worked on the shorts that, which is kind of unique in our industry, which, as you know, once a project breaks, everyone has to look for a new job.
Yeah.
So they actually rolled onto this one, and having all that training is, I think, and having your services, sir, is, I think, a big reason why.
I think he was talking to me.
Those 7 shots were the best 7 shots in the movie.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I think because of that, and I wish productions were more thoughtful in that sense, where once a crew breaks and then maybe you start on something like this, you might have to retrain an entire crew from scratch.
For sure.
And I think that's a big reason why this movie looks so great.
Well, our audience are going to, hold on real quick, Tom. I think our audience are going to really want to know that it has a real old school style to it. More like the old Bob Clampett designs of the characters, as opposed to some of the newer ones that we've seen. And I remember getting the model sheet packet, and I was super excited. I'm like, "Oh, we're doing old school!" And and then on top of that, it was all 2D animation. I mean, it's 100% 2D animation. Audiences are going to go wild for it.
Harkens back to that old squash and stretch.
Yeah, squash and stretch and squash, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. I mean, in Canada, they say stretch and squash. It's
stretch and squash.
Yeah.
You know, and it only costs half as much in Canada.
That's right.
With the rebates.
Tell the tariffs on squash.
How many Tim Hortons donuts is that? That's all I want to know.
Exactly.
Small aside, I'm in Tennessee now, so is Tony. We just got some Tim Hortons here.
So, wait, really?
That's true. Yeah, in Nashville.
Whoever has that franchise is going to be rolling in it.
Yeah, I think so too.
We just got In-N-Out Burger. That's opening like next week, and then of course we created Chick-fil-A. So
I think we found some new sponsors for the show. I think,
we're stepping it on up.
Fast food. So Eric, I got to back up because the whole Mel Blanc to you kind of a relationship, because Mel, we all know, did all the voices, right? Maybe not all, but a lot of them.
99%,
male characters, right? And then
June Foray did the other ones,
and June Foray did the female ones.
Yeah,
but here comes we need a replacement, and I know there were people between you and Mel, I'm sure, because you're not that old. And
I'm 83, guys, and I'll tell you. Filipinos just know how to do it. You know, it's all that fried food that we eat.
You age, you're pickled. So here's the question. Did they come to you, or was the casting call, let's put it that way, out there for, we need a Daffy for a cartoon, whatever it is. And then you came in and just said, oh, how about I do all of them? Or like, how did that start?
I mean, it still is always the way it has been. And, you have to go through the hierarchy of who is telling the story, who is producing the story, who is casting the story. Actors, they only show up when they're asked to show up. And if they are asked to read for any particular character, then they submit an audition. In this particular case, it was a straight offer to voice Daffy. And, I don't consider myself a big Porky guy. There was, ask my doctor, he'll tell you different, but he's like, no, you look like Porky. I was like, no, do I sound like Porky? That's the question. But like in a case like Space Jam, A New Legacy, I was only ever hired, and I think this goes for the rest of the cast that was final. We were only ever brought on, and just like this, to be scratch dialogue, and they always reminded us of that.
Really?
And I was for Space Jam. I was the first actor to work on it with even a different director. There was a whole other director before Malcolm D. Lee was brought on, and I was reading granny lines. Let's put it that way. I was reading every character, so long as LeBron had someone to act with, and this was right before the pandemic. And I remember all the way to the end, they were like, it's just scratch. And I honestly think there could have been the possibility that they were possibly trying to get celebs in the driver's seat for these characters. And my theory, and I love
terrible. Come on,
don't
come on.
Chris Pratt as all of the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I think
you're soft to that. You're okay, maybe.
Here's the thing. I understand why. There's still the business side of show business. And I think obviously the guy that set the trend, of course, was Robin Williams. When he was the genie, I fell in love with that character. Who didn't?
Sure.
But I understood no one else is like Robin Williams. You can't do that with like just anyone. Like,
well,
the reason
they did an Aladdin sequel with a different voice, and it just was Homer Simpson's voice, right?
Dan Castellaneta.
Yeah.
And then they did another one with Robin. They got Robin back.
That's right.
Which was, I actually didn't even know that until like about a year or two ago, and I haven't even seen it yet. But in a case like someone like Seth Rogen, or even Chris Rock for that matter, like these guys, Tom Kenny puts it best. We do character voices, and they have voices with character.
Right.
When you hear that voice, that is a lifetime for them of carving their own comedic voice. And then you have someone like Mike Myers who can do different accents and dialects. And to me, there's a balance. When it works, and I applaud it. As long as you have a couple roles in there for the us blue collars, I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape,
I love your attitude about that, and I agree with you until it comes to an iconic character that we know what that character sounds like.
Yeah, that started with Mel Blanc,
the geeks, and that's all of us go.
And that's where I say
not my Donald.
In a case of Looney Tunes where you have the celebrities, my theory is put the celebrities on the screen, because that's where it makes sense in the meta world where Daffy and Porky and Bugs and whoever, they know that they're cartoon characters on a set at Warner Brothers. So that's when you could see them walking down the studio, the little driveways there, and then you see like Matthew Lillard or whoever else. Like how they did it in Back in Action, which I love that movie.
Yeah. But what? Going back to Space Jam real quick, because I worked on that one too.
Oh yes.
I did animation on.
I did too, Tony.
Tom did a little bit on it. Space Jam: A New Legacy. We're talking about. Did you end up doing some of the final voices then? I wanted to go full circle with that.
So this is again
became the final, probably.
Yeah, going back to the theory of like, okay, like who auditioned, how did they get it? This was the weirdest thing for me, only because I had already been working on Looney Tunes. Marvin the Martian, I've been voicing for 15 Earth years. Isn't that lovely? So I've been with Marvin. He is the highest selling air freshener at Warner Brothers. He's the most marketable. He's the most marketable character. And as the three of us know, he appeared in the least amount of original shorts. He had like five shorts in 90 years. That's insane.
And only two of them were good.
Exactly. Oh, isn't that not lovely? But but in that movie, so in Looney Tunes cartoons, I had just started voicing Bugs, Tweety, and Daffy. And then I had Marvin. So those were the three that I just started voicing. And then in Space Jam: A New Legacy, I did, just because I started voicing Bugs in one project doesn't necessarily mean that the person in charge is going to want you for that role. So alongside myself, we had the veterans like Jeff Bergman and Bob Bergen. And we also had Fred Tatasciore, and even Jim Cummings was in there doing Scratch. And I ended up voicing Daffy for sure, and Marvin. So those are two familiars to me. Yeah. And then they're like, and now you're voicing Elmer. And I was like, what? I was like, I have the worst Elmer. And then they're like, and Foghorn. And I was like, Foghorn? Like, it's worse than anything else. And then they're like, and Porky. And I was like, hold on. And out of respect to people like Bob, I had asked like, hey, and I know Bob was in the movie as Tweety. I had tried to swap out, like, hey, he's here. He's the guy, and has had a career with this character as long as basically Mel. If you count the 80 or 90 years of Looney Tunes, you have to count the years past Mel Blanc, right?
Yeah, right.
Because these are the guys that I grew up watching as well. Like Jeff Bergman is amazing. So Jeff ended up voicing Bugs. Bob was on it as Tweety, and I really did try to get them. Hey, I just started voicing Tweety. I thought I was good at it, and they had denied the request, and they had sent a pig's head in my bed like Godfather. They said, "Do you want to you want to work on this movie or what?" So yeah, it's tough. Sometimes it is a tough thing to do, but at the end of the day,
I mean, I love your humility, but we all know that you were also, they'd heard you do a Porky. It wasn't just out of the blue that they said, "Oh, and you're going to do this." You do have a better Porky than you think.
Or you're just super cheap, or you're just really cheap.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Well, I mean, I wish I could say that, but I have one of the best agents in town, and Cynthia McLean over at SBV. The reason why I sided with SBV is D. Bradley Baker, Jeff Glenn Bennett, Rob Paulson, Tress McNeil. They take care of some of the what I like to call the Mount Rushmore of voiceover, and it's a wonderful thing to be associated with those performers. But I mean, when you are in the booth doing scratch with LeBron James, you're definitely not going to throw your performance. You're going to be the best you can be. Not for the purpose of proving yourself, but for the purpose of getting the best performance out of him.
Yeah.
Because they could have like a mop and a bucket sit next to him and do voices, but would you rather have someone that
sounds like this? Oh, I'd like to if you think so.
Like if I'm sitting next to a world champ, he takes voiceover just as seriously as he is on the court, to be honest with you.
Well, and I love what you're saying. What you just threw me on was, because this doesn't make sense to me. Are you saying that you were doing the voices as they were shooting the live action?
Yeah.
Like, were they recording, and was that the recording they used for the animation, or did you go back into the studio?
No.
If you recall, there are moments where he does appear himself as an animated character. So we were recording everything. And in fact, even when the pandemic started to lift, because by the way, 60% of that movie was recorded in my walk-in closet. So if you hear any dogs barking, if you hear Dino in the background, I will give you at least 50% of your money back if you hear a lawnmower or an airplane. But I was able to join him on set for one pickup shot that they desperately needed to wrap the film, and I was under like 3 layers of protective gear, PPE. Like I had the double mask, the face. I looked like a stormtrooper. I had like the double face shield. I was going into surgery, and everyone but LeBron had that on. And he still, and I will always credit him for this, he's like, "Hey, Bauza, is that you?" I'm like, "Hey," and then he gave me a fist bump.
Oh, that's cool.
I thought you were going to say, and he still got COVID after that.
yeah. I still made him sick.
It's tough.
This is not a pandemic-friendly voice.
Yeah, a lot of
12 feet away from my duck bill.
It was a great time.
Yeah, I got to say your Daffy is really good. I mean, that's not an easy. Kind of like Donald Duck. Donald Duck's got to be the hardest of all the Disney characters.
I think
Daffy's that for Warner Brothers.
And it's so crazy because at one of the screenings for this film, I saw him wander in, Tony Anselmo, and he pulled me aside, and I've said hi to him before.
You thought he was going to hit you, right? You thought he was going to hit you, right?
Does anybody understand what this duck is saying?
Exactly.
It's the last time I worked with a duck with a speech impediment.
Yeah. And he was the guy standing next to Mel Blanc in that movie. So he said nothing but the kindest words to me. And, I think in his heart and in his mind, he was like, "Man, we were this close to doing another Roger Rabbit. Like we could do another one." If
the two of you guys, yeah.
Well, Tony and I worked together. Actually, Tony's more our generation of like animation people. So I worked with him at Disney for many years he was doing cleanup on a lot of our films in the 90s, and he would step out and go do Donald Duck and across the lot and stuff, and then come back. But what about that? You've done a lot of Warner Brothers. Have you, and I know it's a different machine over at Disney. They tend to really stick with a voice kind of forever, right? So it is a little different system. Do you want to get in over there? Is that something you want to do?
At least with the core, as they call them, the Fab Five, right? So there's Mickey. Yeah, they really do.
Goofy, yeah.
But I was very curious to and not shocked, but just curious to see how they did shift that for the Mickey Mouse shorts. Like they have Brett, of course, Mr. Iwan, and then they have Mr. Diamantopoulos, who is an amazing Mickey, but for the Paul Rudish shorts, which are definitely different in tone, especially in tone.
Yeah.
But just as well received as any Disney project that's out there. But
is that a dream for you to be a Disney voice?
Well, I have on the DuckTales reboot, I play all of the Beagle Boys. That's right.
Oh.
I'm Big Time Beagle. I'm Bouncer Beagle, and I'm a Marble Mouth Burger Beagle. That's right. So then there was one episode called the Beagle Boy Birthday Massacre, and it was Ma Beagle's birthday. And I was working with Sam Riegel. He's a voice director, also a very prolific voice actor. And he goes, "You're gonna have a big tough day today." I said, "Why?" And he goes, "You're gonna have to voice 21 Beagle Boys." And I was like,
oh my god,
I don't know how I'm gonna do that, because it's every Beagle Boy brother has like a trio. So I had to come up with 21 different trio, like 21 different voices per trio, and I had to sing Happy Birthday 21 different times in different voices. If you look at the credit list, it's like a paragraph and then my name. And I went, I bet this is going to cost them so much money that they won't hire me again till season 2. And I was right, because the Beagle Boys did not show up again for the rest of the season. I screwed myself out of a job. But there's the Beagle Boys, and then for the Muppets, the Muppet Babies reboot, I was Baby Fozzie. Waka waka. Hey, Bancroft Brothers, why did the chicken cross the playground?
I don't know.
To get to the other slide, waka waka. Yeah, so I did Fozzie.
No, wait. Are you actually funny? Did you make that gag up, or was that in the? That was. I had a hand to do some of them, ad libbed. But I know some of our talented writers came up with most of those jokes. Like,
I can't believe Tom. Tom's like, "Are you actually funny?" Wait,
we want to know.
Eric's a guest on our show,
I'm
and here you are
for the audience, Tony.
Can I just say, yeah? Let me question your humor.
This is where we look for the loose threads, and then Frank Oz just appears. No. Frank is, aside from Eric Jacobson, who is obviously the one and only predecessor to Frank Oz, who I've had the pleasure of meeting. He is so nice, and I've never heard anyone do a Miss Piggy like Eric Jacobson. Incredible. But on Muppet Babies, I was Fozzie Bunsen. I was Stadler. This guy, he ain't bad, but he ain't good. And I was those two guys in the balcony.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I had a fun time. Disney has always been so nice to me, and still one of the only places now where you can pitch, like, at least in the preschool realm, like an original idea. It's kind of weird, right, guys? How it seems like literally the two opposite ends of the spectrum, preschool and Adult Swim, are the only places where you can get original ideas like picked up.
Yeah, that's true. That's
There's
true.
no 6 to 11. Like the Ben 10 era is gone. As soon as I see my son come home from school, he's like, "Bye, Dad," and then he puts on the VR helmet, and then I don't see him for 3 months. It's crazy.
I hope he's eating.
Well, speaking of the creative
just a dish
side,
of water. Yeah.
Is that something that you'd want to get more involved with? Is pitching ideas, writing stories, working on some of the shows? More behind the scenes.
Fun.
Even if I did have a good idea, I wonder if I knew 2 talented brothers who would help me animate it. I don't know.
We're not doing anything. Sure.
Yeah. I'm
well,
sure
now that you guys
slow
are
periods, we do too.
You guys are podcast celebrities now, so I don't know. I put you guys in the Zach Galifianakis world, like in the whole podcast world now.
We're too big for you.
Our 7 listeners might get jealous.
I did say this, Tony, pre-show. I'm a big follower. I follow Eric on Instagram, Tony.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I was setting you up.
You go to all the best parties. I feel like everybody in Hollywood.
Yeah, you're out there.
I mean, my battery's about to run out. I got to charge in the wall here. No.
It's
I'm
from your
actually me as a
production
human, yeah.
assistant days, right? When you were a PA at
But you're
Oh
doing
my gosh.
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of major marketing now for the day the Earth blew up. What's been this has gone through some highs and lows. I want to see if we could talk a little bit about it. This is one of the movies for the audience that's listening that Warner Brothers shelved for a while. They kind of literally finished it. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I know it was shelved. They decided not to release it. I think it was HBO Max or just Max, I guess it is, that decided they didn't want to pick it up on Max, and then it kind of went into all over. And it wasn't until it went to Annecy, I want to say last year or the year before, that it really made some waves. They did a screening, right? Were you there at that Annecy screening? What was that like?
That's like one of the biggest regrets of my life was not hopping on a plane to go to the south of France.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna save all my marbles for Comic-Con. I always laugh at Comic-Con because I always stare at the people and go, couldn't we just have done this in Burbank? Like, why did we have to drive 2 hours to San Diego to do I like to call Comic-Con also the company Christmas party where everyone gets trashed and does something that they regret the next day. But I so regret not going to Annecy just to experience that full audience reaction to the movie for the very first time.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was able to see it at Animation is Film Fest in LA. That's one of the first times I've ever seen anything I've worked on that received, like, I thought I was at a taping of Married with Children, like the audience canned laughter, like a taping of Full House or Perfect Strangers. I was like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah,
and
they were all, because they're all together and they're geeks. That's what you would have loved about Annecy too. That was a crowd that loves animation.
International geeks, by the way.
Yeah,
geeks from all over the world.
Well, speaking of geeks, I will say this movie is blowing up. Reviews have been incredible for it. I've been seeing it. It's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes as we speak.
Amazing.
And it comes out this Friday.
We have to wrap up. Soon.
We got to wrap this up.
I don't know if you can hear me, but last question.
I'm literally wrapping it up right now.
Okay. All right. I got my security staff apparently.
Yeah. This is my lead.
Slide a piece of paper to you. But
anyway, I just want to really say, I can't say enough about how quirky, funny, entertaining, how well crafted this movie is. It's like nothing we've seen before, or at least it really speaks back to a different time in animation when quality was job number one. And I think people are going to really love this. It comes out this Friday, as we were saying, or very soon, or is it Thursday? Anyway, by the time this releases, it'll be out in theaters. Please go see Looney Tunes, The Day the Earth Blew Up. Eric, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
This honestly is the push that I feel like this film needed was from you guys. You guys, I believe, are the guard when it comes to quality animation, and I'm thrilled to get to talk to you. Yeah. And if you guys ever need someone to park cars or bring shrimp cocktail to animation, y'all, I'm there. I'll be a guest. I love Dallas, by the way.
Good. Yeah. We're not in Dallas. We're in Nashville. But
are you in Nashville?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you like Nashville too? Okay, good.
But in that case, on that note, gentlemen, I want to say thank you, and
that's all, folks.
Great. That's awesome.
And Tony, as we always say,
animate from the heart.
There it is.
If you like what you just saw, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pencilish Studios.